thing on? Can you hear me okay? Well, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, and thank you so much to the Notre Dame Club of Indianapolis, and of course to St. Thomas Aquinas Church and the entire congregation for inviting me here to share with you. It's a great honor to be here, and I hope that we have a good conversation. I'd like to talk at you for a short amount of time and then with you for a longer amount of time. So why don't we dive right in? This is an important topic, and I just want to warn everyone or let you know that I'm going to be showing some graphs and some charts with data about some of the issues of racism in the United States. These are not easy things to see. They're violent and they're problematic. I just want people to know that I'm going to be showing some of these. I don't need to tell any of you that this statement is true. But let me just remind you why in some very specific information. Our past, the history of the United States, is rife with structural inequalities based on race. This country is built on that foundation. And that maintains itself today. I love the United States. I am doing everything I can to make this a better country. But part of that is understanding the history and contemporary nature of inequality, particularly around race and racism in the United States. And so that's an important challenge for us, both for Americans writ large, especially for communities of faith. You might have trouble reading these, but this is a recent NBC poll just asking all adults, white, black, and Hispanic individuals, sort of your own experience. And the bottom line is that individuals experience life in the United States differently based on race. Our individual experiences of the same things are different. So race matters. If you look at household income, economics, household ownership, household value, access to economic flourishing, it varies based on race. There are incredibly horrific health differences based on race in the United States, particularly around infant mortality and maternal mortality around birthing. We have one of the most virulent incarceration systems in the world. We incarcerate a higher percentage of our population than almost any other democratic nation. And we do so in an incredibly racialized form. Race matters. But at the same time, most people have no idea what race really is. It's one of those things that everyone just says, oh yeah, black, white, Asian, I know this, Latino, whatever. But what I'd like to do today is to disarticulate what we think race is, because one of the problems is these assumptions about race that undergird our daily lives, and then to demonstrate what race actually is and how it works and how racism is really what we should be talking about, not so much race. So what is race? Well, race is very clearly a misused and powerful word. Most people, when they say race, are actually referring to something that is not what they think it is. It is also extremely important in our society. I've already demonstrated that. All of you know that. I didn't have to show you any graphs to convince you that race is important. And I would argue that race is not talked about effectively. People are afraid to talk about race. People are ignorant about the history and the context and the biology and the reality of what race is. So race, as is normally used, is not a biological category. But most people think that biology underlies race. Now, I used to ask this question when giving this lecture, but most people just lied in the answer. And my question was, how many of you think that black, white, Asian are undergirded, at least in some way, by biology? And if you're honest with yourself, and you grew up in this country, you think that. Why? Because everything about the discourse on race seems to push them. It's wrong. And it's really important to understand how that's wrong. So that's the first thing we're going to do. But let me first say, before I get criticized all the time, they say, oh, Professor Fuentes, you just say everyone's the same. I'm not an idiot. Look around. Everyone's is not the same. There's only one way in which all humans are identical, right? And that is what anthropologists like to call biopsychological equality. That is, you take an infant from anywhere on the planet, take that infant somewhere, well, actually don't do it, it's a horrible thing to do and illegal, but if you took that infant and raised them somewhere else, that infant would grow up in that society acquiring the language and the customs and the beliefs just as well as anyone else. All humans have the capacity to flourish as humans, right? That's something that communities of faith recognize intrinsically. That's how humans read. But other than that, we vary a lot. So I'm never saying here that humans don't vary biologically, culturally, psychologically, in many, many ways, but not in the ways that we frequently think they do here in the United States. Okay, so let's take something off the table. Let's talk about what race is not, then let's talk about what race is. And let's see if we can come to some sort of interesting place to have a conversation after that. Okay, so first, a couple words, very important. I'm a scientist, so I like to get specific about things because people are very sloppy generally. When I say population, I mean a biological term for a geographic human cluster. So population is a group of humans in a particular area that marry more within than without. Okay? Is that fine? That's population. So when I say population, I'll come back to this again and again and again. Race does not equal ethnic group, does not equal population, does not equal ancestry. These are four totally different things. People confuse them all the time. Race and ethnicity are not the same. Ancestry, if you want to talk about 23andMe later, I will be glad. Okay, so these four things are separate. They're not the same thing. Do not use them interchangeably. So here is the basic assumption that most people have, whether you admit it to yourself or not. Has everyone noticed seeing this sort of general three-race category, right? We sort of got this African thing, European thing, and then Asia, right? Just ignore Australia, it just messes with everyone. Is everyone familiar with this? The basic assumption, the idea here is that there's sort of a cluster of humans, and we're all humans, but that there's a cluster that sort of has their origins here, a cluster has their origins here, and a cluster has their origins here, right? Three sort of clusters. Yeah, we're all human, but there's sort of three types of humans, right? Well, this is in fact, this is a scientific assertion. I'm a scientist. I study human biology and human evolution. So we just can ask the clear and easy question, does biology get us black, white, and Asian? Is this testable? Yes, it is. Let's test it. All right, blood, right? First thing, everyone says it's in your blood, right? We always think blood matters. It does, right? Our distant ancestors knew blood matters. Why? You cut yourself and bleed, you die, right? If you bleed enough. Blood is very important. But we misunderstand what we mean by blood because people think that race is in your blood. Well, there are 26 different blood groups, that is different kinds of proteins that live in your blood, right, that constitute our blood. The most common system that we know about is A, B, O systems. Everyone heard of this? Usually put a plus or a minus. That's the rhesus system. That's actually a separate system, so we're going to ignore that. So I won't talk about the other 25, but we can talk about it if you want in the Q&A. So if you look at humans in general, 62.5% of humans have the genetic version of O, 21 A, 16% B, and then you have a mixture of these, right? You can add B, A, B as well. I'm not going to go through the biology of this. Just know that these are the sort of versions we have, right? So let's ask the question, does the most studied blood group give us three races? Okay, well here's B. Three races here? No. So basically, Australia, most of the Americas, and Botswana. One race? No. Okay, so B is no good. B is not getting us anything. And A, yeah, that's not getting us anything either. Same is true for O, same is true for AB. Same is true for every single other blood group. You cannot use blood to cluster people to black, white, or Asian. No matter what you see on TV shows. We'll come back to that. All right, so it's not blood, it's got to be genes, right? It's got to be the genetics. Everyone loves DNA now, right? Everyone loves DNA. How many of you realize that all humans have 100% of the same genes? Let's see a show of hands. We have 100% of the same genes. All humans have the same genes. Why is that? What's this? What percentage of our DNA do we share with this chimp? About 98, 97. People keep pushing that number higher. But anyways, chimps, very impressive, very close to us. Daffodils, 36%, right? Which part of me is 36% daffodil? I'm not sure. But it tells you that the simple percentage comparison is probably not the way to go, right? So what we're really interested in here is how those genes vary. So there won't be an exam, so don't freak out. Here are 4 different genes, right, which is a sequence of DNA. This one here, this PLAT ALU, this is one of the few genes we have that chimps don't have. And what you see here, you can't read it, but that's a bunch of different human populations, right? Groups that breed more within than without. Human populations, and what you'll see is for ALU, there are 2 forms of the gene, the yellow form and the green form, right? And what you can see is each population has a different frequency of yellow to green. Does everyone see that? So same genes, but this gene has 2 different forms, and how humans vary is in the frequency of those forms. And with other ones, we have 6 or 7, right? So all humans have the same genes, but one gene could have 2 forms, 10 forms. Some genes have 40 or 50 forms. And it's just the versions of those genes, right? So that's actually really interesting. So here's another version. This is the ADHID. This is called alcohol dehydrogenase. And you can see, this is a different way of showing it. You see high densities in certain areas and low densities in other areas, right? So we all have the same genes, it just varies the forms of those genes that we have. Here's sickle cell, hemoglobin disorders, sickle cell, thalassemias. How many of you think sickle cell anemia is a black disease? Almost everyone, right? What city in the United States has one of the highest sickle cell anemia frequencies? Toledo, Ohio. Why Toledo? Well, it turns out Toledo has a very large Lebanese population, and South Asian and Middle Eastern groups have as high, if not higher, rates of sickle cell than many West African populations, West African descendant populations. How many of you knew that? Why not? This is basic biology, and yet in our society, basic biology is not taught. So sickle cell, or the different hemoglobin disorders, don't get us race either. So blood and genetics don't work. Well, what about ancestry stuff? So it turns out, if I took a population from, let's say, Lagos, Nigeria, took a bunch of their blood, took a bunch of folks from, let's say, London, England, took their blood, and took a bunch of folks from Beijing and took their blood, and then I looked at all the DNA, sequenced all the DNA, I can tell them more. I could show you, oh, these people are from Lagos, these people are from London, these people are from Beijing. Or at least I can say, you know, these 3 groups are different. Noticeably, I can tell they're different. That's race, right? If I took populations from Java, from northern India, and from Siberia up here, all Asia, I can tell them apart just as easily. Same is true for 3 populations from what we would call Europe. And if I took 3 populations from distant points in Africa, they'd be even easier to tell apart. They're even more different. That's because populations vary. It just depends on which ones we take. If we just take from certain places, then we're going to pretend and represent that they look like races, but they don't. This is why. So this is my DNA and all of yours. Humans share 99.9% of their DNA, sequence for sequence identically. We only vary by 0.01%. How many of you have done an ancestry test? 23andMe or any of those? So when you spit in a tube and paid $150, they're telling you about 0.01% of your DNA. They didn't tell you about the other 99.9% because it's all the same as every other living human being. This is how they should start. They shouldn't say, oh, you're 50% Ashkenazi Jew and 22% in Northern Ireland or whatever. They should say, you are 99.9% human. And if the 0.1% that actually varies amongst humans, here's where we think that might be played out. Did they ever do that? No, because that's not what they're trying to sell you. They're not trying to sell you science or knowledge. So this This is what most people think human genetics is, right? That there's European, African, and Asian sort of groups that, of course, they overlap. They can mate together and have kids, but they're different things. If you take populations from around the planet, and we've done this with the 1,000 Genomes Project and many other projects, hundreds and hundreds of populations, you sequence all of the DNA, and you ask, what does that look like? What does that distribution look like? All DNA in populations outside sub-Saharan Africa are a small subset of the variation within Africa. All populations outside of Africa represent a small genetic subset of the variation, the genetic variation in Africa. This is not what they tell you. But this is extremely important. So why is that the case? So the American Society of Human Genetics recently said that genetics demonstrates that humans cannot be divided into biologically distinct subcategories. Genetics exposes the concept of racial purity as scientifically meaningless. It has to be meaningless if this is what our DNA looks like. And the American Society of Human Genetics knows a few things about genetics. So why is this the case? Well, this is why you should study human evolution. Our lineage originates in Africa and diversified first in Africa. So there's more diversity in Africa. The second thing is, Africa's a lot bigger than you think. So all of you look at the wrong map. You know those maps we buy our kids for the wall map? That's a Mercator projection. The Mercator's projection, in fact, is a kind of racializing tool because it minimizes the southern hemisphere. It maximizes it. Didn't anyone ever wonder why Alaska looks the size of Brazil? It's not. It's really not. This is a Peters projection, which actually represents a little bit better. You can never represent perfectly on two-dimensional, but in this Peters projection, you get a better idea. Africa's the largest single continent, right? So, for example, you don't believe me, you can take United States, India, Western Europe, throw in Norway, Argentina, all of China, put it all in Africa, and still have room left over. Knowledge is power. Humans have been longest in Africa, and Africa is the largest contiguous landmass, so the diversification of populations there is much greater than anywhere else on the planet. We're all a subset of African DNA. Okay, so some people say, well, we're different kinds of subspecies, like there's these different groups. Let me just point out there's good genetic evidence for two subspecies of chimpanzees, one in West Africa, one in Central Africa. There's actually 4 of them across Africa. These two chimpanzees from Central Africa, from the sort of equatorial Africa, are more different from each other than any two humans are on the entire planet. The genetics shows there's only one human race. Other species have some real distinctions genetically, not humans, not compared to any other animal. And really importantly, there's not a single unit, a single sequence of DNA that you can use to identify black-white variation. There's nothing genetically unique to any of those categories. Genes don't give us race. So, in a recent major statement that I was one of the co-authors on, we said, humans share a vast majority, 90% of our DNA in common. Individuals nevertheless exhibit substantial genetic and phenotypic variability. There's a lot of variation in those. Remember which form of the gene you have? Right? But that variation doesn't match the black, white, and Asian. Human populations never have been biologically discrete, truly isolated, or static. Genes don't get us race. All right, what about bodies? We have all this body variation. I'm not even going to go through all of that. Let me just point out that every category, black, white, Asian, has every range of body type and shape. So body type, shape, height, structure, none of those things. Hair type, skin color, doesn't get us race. I'll show you that in a moment. We know why bodies vary, but most of it is because people move around and have sex a lot. And they have for a long time. There's good evidence. There's 7.5 billion human beings on the planet. We're pretty good at it. Skin color is extremely important because most people have no idea the diversity of skin color in the human species. We have this incredible range, and here I want to point out Angelica Dawson's Brazilian photographer's incredible work using all of the Pantone, all of Kodachrome colors, and she found just people to match all of the different skin colors. You can go look at her site, she has hundreds of these images, just to show the incredible beauty and diversity of skin tone. Because when we talk about color, black, white, yellow, brown, are you kidding me? It's this incredibly beautiful range of pigment and tone that we, for some reason, particularly in the United States, have used to classify people. We've done a very bad job of it. Let me illustrate. Here's what skin looks like. If you cut it away, right? So we've got this sort of epidermis, which is the upper end of the skin, and the dermis. And in between the dermis and the epidermis are a bunch of things called melanocytes. Melanocytes are these little organelles in your body. And what they do is they kick out melanin. Anyone ever heard of melanin before? Okay, melanin is the key pigment in all mammals, and actually most animals. Other animals have more pigments. Mammals tend to have melanin and one or two other things. We have keratin too, with a little orangey color, but that's not really in our skin. What colors does melanin come in? Two colors. Black and brown. That's it. So the entire range of colors for humans are black and brown. Now, what happens is, the way your melanocytes are distributed and how active they are says how much melanin you have in your skin. So, if you have very evenly distributed melanocytes and they produce a lot of melanin, then white light is not reflected. So, evenly distributed melanocytes, lots of melanin, absorbs white light, but reflects ultraviolet light. Why do we want to reflect ultraviolet light off of our skin? Yeah, it is very, very carcinogenic, right? So every evidence we have, and genetically this is well supported, is that all humans early on, particularly when we all lived near the equators and were smart not to move into northern freezing places like we are today, all humans were dark. That's the base skin color for humans. As humans moved into more northerly climes, we actually were under pressure to get a little bit of UV light, because we need UV light for production of vitamin D. And so as you move more north, as they did in parts of what we would call Europe and Asia today, over the last about 500,000–600,000 years, we started to see some pressure to reduce the amount of melanin in the skin. And we do that over time by evolving clustered melanocytes, like in little clusters instead of evenly spread, and reduced production of melanin. So if you have very clustered melanocytes and lower production of melanin, you reflect a lot of white light, so your skin looks light. So what we're really doing, dark and light are not colors, they're degrees of reflection. So lighter skin lets in more UV light, which is why if you have light skin, you burn, but also you can do this great experiment if you go out in the sun and then get in before you burn. What happens if you have very light skin? To many people with light skin, you go out in the sun, but you don't burn, you come back in. What do you develop? Freckles. Those are your melanocyte clusters going, whoa, UV light, producing a bunch of melanin. All humans tan, right? Whenever you walk into the sun, you produce more melanin. Your body does that. But if you have little clusters of melanocytes, you freckle. Okay, is everyone on board here? So that's where we get skin color. But wait, you say, but skin color tells us something, right? Skin color, and this is a map of skin color in populations that have lived in the same place for a long time, it's actually correlated with the equator. Why? Because ultraviolet light intensity is correlated. So now that humans move around, we have much more mixing, but if you look at populations that live in the same place for at least a few thousand years, you see that darker skin is equatorial and lighter skin is in the northern lines, because that's what the environmental pressure selects for over time. That's the explanation for skin color. But at the same time, there are important differences in skin color, right? So, for example, one of these things is not like the others. Right? This is me a very, 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 very long time ago, doing some research. So to be honest, and I show this picture for a reason, people always say, yes, you just said about the distribution of skin color and evolution and all this stuff, but I can tell from skin color and some other things like the curly hair, the broad noses, the sort of wavy hair, the thin nose, I can tell where these people are from, right? So where's this person from? Origins, like where are my ancestors, recent ancestors from? Yeah, Southern Europe, Central Europe, North Africa, that sort of the Mediterranean, right? And what about these kids? Dark skin, broad noses, tight curly hair. Africa, right? Wrong. This is Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea. This is Asia, Oceania. Dark skin, broad noses, and curly hair are distributed across the entire world's equator in populations. What you think you know about distribution of human biology is wrong. You've been lied to. Dark skin, these characteristics do not identify only one group of people. They, in fact, identify groups of people from areas across the planet. Understanding biology is really important. So skin color actually it can't be used for anything biologically except to say, well, you probably have some ancestry relative to the equator somewhere. Is that a race? Are there people from the equator and people not from the equator? And even then, skin color doesn't even work that way. Why? I would like to introduce you to the Almir twins. These are two sisters. They're twins. They're fraternal twins. Skin color is a horrible indicator of biological relatedness in humans. Here's when they're little girls. Here's the family. Here's the family a couple years ago. The assumption that skin color categorizes people into actual biological groups is absurd biologically, and yet it is the centerpiece of our racialization here in this country. Okay, biology doesn't get us race, but you need to remember, humans vary biologically a lot. Look around the room, people vary biologically a lot. I'm not saying we don't vary, but I am showing you that the biology refutes the idea that those things we call races are underpinned by biological categories. We can tell populations apart based on genetics, morphology, skin color, hair, all of that stuff, but populations are not black, white, and Asian. These are races, and they are socially constructed. We made these up. Not that they're not real, but they're not biological. That's the first important thing, right? The way we use race is not biology. So any explanation for differences can't be involved with biology. Biology doesn't explain why the differences and inequalities happen. So what is race? Okay, at least a few of you chuckled. Now, what's happened is changing now. Usually when I show this picture, people chuckle. Why? Who is this? Does anyone know? Yao Ming, yeah. Anyone know who this is? Yeah. So we have a tall Asian guy and a short black guy. People laugh. Why would you laugh? Because in our society we have expectations for these categories and we think they're biological. We don't realize that there are tons of short black people and tons of tall Asian people. That's not our mindset. Race is a social construct. And race is created by all of these things. So when I say race is a social construct, that doesn't mean it's not real. It just means it is not biologically determined. It didn't come from biology. It came from our minds, our history, our economics, and our racist intent. Socially construct does not mean fit. All right? Let me give you an example. Oh, yes, let me just remind you, and I'll come back to this. Racism is how we get race. No one should ever talk about race without talking about racism. You don't have race without racism. That's what comes first. That's how you get this. Okay, I assume it hasn't been that long. You guys all know who this individual is. So why is this man black and not white in our society? Here's his dad, here's his mom, who happen to be an anthropologist. I don't know if you guys know. Here's little Barack. So this gentleman, Barack Obama, is black, white, Kenyan, American, Christian. Why, if he was walking down the road, had never been president, if he was walking down the road here in Indianapolis, would he just be black? That's what social construction is. That's how we create these things, right? We have in the United States what we call hypodescent rules. One drop or some fraction or any African descent, or even just physical appearance. If you happen to be from Papua New Guinea or walking down the road, guess what? You're black in the United States. That's because these are social categories. And we don't push against them and think, what is this? They're real. This is real. I'm not saying this isn't real. And it means something. And there's something to it. But it's not biology. So what about categories like this? So here's me. Anyone know who this is? Sammy Sosa, right? So both Sammy Sosa and I are Latino, right? Hispanic. But it depends, because I'm classified as white legally, and he's black legally. That's a really weird category. That's a weird system. And we don't even, like, what about these guys? We don't even have a Malaysian, right? I mean, that's not part of our system. So what's going on with our system? Well, why don't we just ask what the official U.S. government categories are? 2010 census. So here's the census thing. I hope all you guys fill this out. You get to ask, are you Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin? Which, as of the 1990s, was no longer race. Used to be race. Now it's an ethnicity. It is the one legal ethnicity in the United States. So thank you. I became ethnic. Only a few of you can share that with me. Just lose my pointer. But race here is then a whole bunch of other things. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but let me just, I know you probably can't read this, but I will just give you a read. So here are the government, our official U.S. official designations of race. White refers to people having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe. Black African American refers to people having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. American Indian, Native Alaskan refers to people who have origins in original peoples. Asian, original peoples of the Far East, Southeast Asia, or Indian subcontinent, which is always sort of funny because that's like 72% of humanity. So. Native Hawaiian or Guamanian, anyways, original peoples. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but in the legal, the government dictated, mandated categories, only one group gets a biological term. Black or African American. Everyone else gets to be original peoples. Black or African American is a black racial group of Africa. This is racism. This is setting apart a group of people intentionally and not giving them even the credit of original peoples. This is how baked into our system racism is. We know that race matters. Race matters in what you earn. Let me just give you a graphic here. This is from 2011, so this is from the 2010 census. So this will be 2021 or 2050. We'll have the next one. Let me just drive this home. This is mean net worth. The gap for black families, Latino families compared to white families is over $100,000. You know what net? This means owning homes. This means a variety of other kinds of security and context. This is a problem. Because there's no biological reason for this. This is a social, historical, political, intentional difference. This I'm going to show again. This is the post-neonatal mortality rate for every 1,000 live births. If you take the mean for the U.S., we rank, in the top 20 of the world. If you just look at Native American or African American populations, we're number 68. We're worse than Syria. That is racism. It's hard to see here. This is Chicago, what you can from the census. These are the different groups. You can tell what the colors are. There are different races. Here's New York, the New York region. We live in different worlds. We separate each other. And that structure is part of the history of racism in the United States. Here's the scariest one for me. Children, as they grow up, on average in the United States, do not interact, especially white children, do not interact with anyone of a different race than themselves. Ignorance is necessary for racism. And then just a bunch of data here, basically, and I can just show you data after data after data, even paid for by the US government. Studies that show that our system of rental, of loans, of car sales is racist. There are racial biases in every system. And here's my favorite one. This is, you can tell by the picture, it's very old, but on eBay, we had a white hand and a black hand selling an old iPod. The white hand got 21% more attention, right? 21% more offers. And would sell for a higher price. And they've repeated this again and again and again. Wow. Racism baked into the system. So what? What's the point of all of this? Race, as we use the term in classification, is not a reflection of biological groups. So, pattern differences, everything that I've just showed you here, that you know about, pattern differences that occur between what we call races are not caused by inherent biological differences in intelligence or capacity or any of that. They're due to social, historical, political, economic, and experiential contexts. Our system has created racialized infrastructures that damage our bodies, our lives, and our societies. But if it's not due to biology, if it is not due to an intrinsic part of human nature, it's changing. It is changing. And we know over the history in the United States it has changed. And it can change, but only through action. Inaction does nothing but propagate the system. Racism, and here I'm using Ijeoma Oluo's quote from her wonderful book, How to Talk About Race. So you want to talk about race. Racism is any prejudice against someone because of their race when those views are reinforced by systems of power. This is really important, okay? Because there are jerks of every color and every kind. But a racist comes from a system of power that uses this system of inequality to harm others intentionally. And this is what depresses me about our current landscape. We have people running our government that intentionally deploy racist statements and racist context from positions of incredible power to promulgate, to continue, to take away the very possibility of human flourishing. That is not acceptable as an American, it's not acceptable as a person of faith, it's not acceptable as a scientist. And yet it happens all the time. Dr. Martin Luther King, everyone quotes all of his great statements, but for me one of the most important ones was one he wrote. Perhaps I was too optimistic. Perhaps I expected too much. I suppose I should have realized that few members of the oppressor race can understand the deep groans and passionate yearnings of the oppressed race, and still fewer have the vision to see that injustice must be rooted out by strong, persistent, and determined action. None of this is easy. It's hard to talk about, it's hard to see, but it is inherent on anyone of good conscience to act on. Racism is real, so therefore race is real. Enforced inequality and institutional injustice are not acceptable in our society. How many of us learn in school, yay, America, enforced inequality? That's not actually what we teach, and yet it's how we live our lives and what we accept from our history and from our contemporary political and economic context. So what can we do about this? All right? I'm an instructor, professor, so I'm about to give you homework for the rest of your lives. Think. Please. I study human evolution. I particularly study neurobiology and cognition. We have this unbelievably incredible capacity to imagine, to create, to imagine, to look at the world around us and imagine and create possibilities for betterment and to try to make them real. That's been our success as a human species. We should be doing that all the time. Think and get knowledge, inform yourself, push your own boundaries because it's hard. It's really difficult. So think about this stuff. Don't just accept what's given to you. Don't accept anything I've said. Go out and do the work yourself. It's all available. All this information is common knowledge. Please talk about race and racism in every context. You don't always have to talk about it, but you should every now and then, because we all experience it, whether we're in positions of incredible privilege or incredible inequity. We all experience racism as part of our structure. So what I tell my students when I teach the race and racism class, I say, don't do this at every single party or family gathering. But at most, call someone out when they say that really stupid racist thing. Because people do all the time. And finally, act. I mean, if we don't try in our own communities, in our own lives, to recognize how important this is, and to recognize the own power each one of us has to even make small changes, then we're failing that incredible calling that we had this year.